We're often confused about our career choices, colleges, streams of study, etc. That in the process, students are often crushed in the Indian education system with some bad mental health. And these decisions are extremely crucial in one's life and can be a make or break for their career. Welcome to the third episode of Candid Conversations with Chaarmikha. This is the podcast where we converse with change makers and gain perspective. This week's special guest is Saanya Khunger, a commerce student from Hansraj College, Delhi University. She's also the co-founder of Kavach, an edu-management and career consulting startup which provides personalized mentorship in the fields of academics, career, and student psychology to high school students. She's also pretty active in several of her college events and societies, with TEDx and ESL being few examples. And today we'll discuss a bit about university choices, mental health, board exams, etc., and a bit about her entrepreneurial journey as well. Welcome to the podcast, Sanya.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, firstly. And I think it's great to be here.
How's everything going in general as well?
Everything is going pretty good. I think we are going back to a normal life after the pandemic. I think at least we are moving towards it. So I think it's good.
Right. Can you tell us a bit about Kavach? What was the whole purpose that it began with?
Mm-hmm. So Kavach, as you rightly mentioned, it's an edu-management and career guidance, career consulting startup where we're trying to impact the lives of high school students by providing them personalized and the right mentorship and guidance. So that's the basic agenda of it, making sure that students are getting the personalized guidance according to their needs and not just something generalized or mainstream that there would be on the internet, right? So focusing on that, we have different mentorship programs that are catering to different needs of high school students. At the end of the day, we're trying to be the one-stop solution for all their academic and career problems and needs. So that's about that.
Right. And how does Kavach differ from a random generic career counseling, consultancy?
Mhm. So, of what I have observed and researched about, career consulting agencies focus a lot on what's the aptitude, which is important, definitely, and surround everything around it, which shouldn't be the case in my opinion. And that's what the entire team thinks. It's like having something personalized, something you've interested in, something you still want to be doing years later. So I think your interest matters, your passion matters, what you can actually do, your passion and your aptitude comes in place then. And we're trying to make it very personalized. We're connecting them to the right mentors, including students who understand the exact problems situation, so they understand it much better. So we're connecting them to students, make sure that they're comfortable as well. And we're just focusing on making mentorship very affordable. That's one of our USPs, I'd say, as well. Where career consulting generally has become a money making business. It is very expensive if you go to any random agency. The industry prices are very high. And not a lot of them can afford them even if they need that guidance. So I think we're just trying to bridge that gap and make sure students are getting the best at the best prices.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, when I think of career counseling, I would hesitate to go for it because it takes a ton of money to go for it, even. So,
Definitely.
considering that, most of the people at Kavach are students, do you think the fact that it's student led makes it easier for high school students to express themselves too?
Definitely. I think even it's just easy to talk about your problems, your academics to someone who's almost your age or just a few years older because they don't understand. The students, I think, when they're communicating to the student mentors and to the team as well, they feel heard and they feel understood. However, if you're talking to some 30, 40-year-old who was in school years before, cannot even relate to the problems, I think there's a gap between, like, there's just a communication gap. So even the students feel heard and understood and they think that they can share their problems.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. The relatability factor plays in a lot.
Definitely.
And most of the programs that Kavach offers focus on university choices or career choices in general. So, can you list out like a few factors one must consider while picking a university?
Mhm. As I mentioned, all of this has to be like very personalized. However, if I have to help with what could be the possible factors, firstly, wrap your head around what is it that you want to do. Like, you might not have always figured out your interest really well. So figure out at least one thing, a course or a college, so you have a base to begin with. Because if there are question marks all around, figuring all of them out would be difficult. So I think one would be having one thing constant, that, oh, you want to do this, or you want to go to the certain college, and then you start going after that. If there's one thing constant, you research well. Research is very important. That's something we help a lot with in the initial sessions of literally all our programs, because we're trying to make sure the students are well aware of the options. I think in India, the major problem is most students are not aware about different colleges, different, degrees, different courses. So I think if they research well, that's one thing. It should be done well. And once you're choosing the right college for you, of course, some people have regional restrictions. Some people don't want to, some people even want to shift their, streams. Like in 11th and 12th, they had some different stream. And then they realize that this is not what they want to do. This is not what they signed up for. So I think just knowing what you want and figuring it out step by step. Everything does not happen at once. So that's it. That's why I think I promote, like, taking professional guidance, because the entire process gets streamlined. Otherwise, you end up stressing yourself out. So just connect with the right people. I think that's very important, because let's say if I before I came to Hansraj, I talked to the seniors in my college, so I could understand, the in and out of the college before I'm there. Now I understand it well being a senior myself, and I'm, talking to freshers and helping them out.
Yeah.
So I think all of these points are important.
Right. So proper awareness of how the college works, and like you
Mhm.
mentioned, everything is personalized. You might have certain preferences that others might not like.
Definitely.
That really makes sense. And you spoke about picking courses or picking a college, right? While picking courses, do you think it is just the interest that really matters, or you should have some other X factor to it and not just the interest while picking a course?
Mhm. I think interest is very important. However, you can't restrict yourself to it. Let's say I have an interest in painting, but if I'm not good at it, can I pursue it as a career though? Not, right? So I think skill set is something, or like just your passion to even build up on it if possible. But if let's say you can't do it right due to whatever XYZ reasons, then I think pursuing that as a career might not be the best option. But I think interest is important because, as I mentioned before, like after 30, 35, 40, you still want to be, wanting to get up and do that every day. And you can't do that just because you're earning well or that paid you well when you were 25, right? So I think it's important you prioritize your interest, because you want to be doing that for not more than just like a few years. So
And I think, like you mentioned, interest and you know aptitude also works well with each other,
definitely.
right? And do you think that one of the other factors that you might want to consider is also the demand that these courses actually have?
hmm So the demand plays a huge role, definitely. I think there are a lot of upcoming, jobs and just fields where people are signing up for. They want to explore those. So there's this more awareness now, so people are taking those up.
Right.
But again, not every time you don't want something that's in demand. Let's say if uh, data science is coming in demand now, but if I don't want to be doing it, it shouldn't matter. Like, of course, these are in demand. There's more awareness. I'm happy about it that people are exploring new options and not just going for the mainstream jobs. So, but yeah, you can always prioritize the in demand jobs. But again, I think it's very personalized. At the end, you need to figure out if that's something you want to be doing, or you have interest in, or you can do it.
That makes sense. And drawing from the previous questions, right? You may not always get the best scores in best university at all points. You'll have to choose between either of them. So this is pretty tricky. Would you suggest a best college with the not so best scores or an average college with the best scores?
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's tricky because, again, not everyone gets the best course and the best college. It is
True.
not possible in a lot of cases because you can't always get what you want. And I think college, when you're entering that phase after school, it hits you that, oh, you can't always get what you want. Moving forward with the question, yes, it's tricky. And I would personally say, again, it's right personalized. If you particularly want that college, let's say because of the status, of the brand name, or because of its specialization, great, go for it. But in my experience, I've realized course is very important because that's your first step of the career. If you're studying the subject you want to be pursuing later, that's more important than the college rank or the brand name that it carries. So I think if I would answer for myself here again, I would choose a course over the college because I want to be doing that years later. I don't want to shift my course completely. However, if there are two courses which are pretty similar and getting a way better college, I might prioritize that. Again, very situational, I would say.
Yeah.
But for me, I think I'd say course over college.
Yeah, that makes sense because college at the end of the day is just a tag that you will add to the course that you're doing.
Exactly.
Right? And I know this is a random question, but what do you think about the recent cutoffs? Because you come from DU as well, right? And you know the
Yeah.
university in and out. What do you think about it?
Uh, I think it's not fair to students, especially this year, because they did not even get to work for their marks and at least be content with it, whether good or bad. So I think, and anyway, DU aspirants go through this every year. The day the first cutoff comes out, it's skyrocketing, and everyone is heartbroken. I remember when the first cutoff came out, I think I was in tears. I wasn't doing my best because it hit me. So I think that happens with a lot of DU aspirants, and like being the co-founder of Kavach as well, where I see so many students closely every year. I think I see how the process goes, and I've been through that as well. It's skyrocketing. Sometimes it's not justified, but it stresses people out. It affects their mental health, and you don't always get what you want because of how skyrocketing it is. And as I said, even unfair for this particular batch. So
Yeah, that makes sense. They've been sitting all at home for like the whole year,
yeah,
and
exactly.
yeah. So I mean, do you think such cutoffs or such a cutthroat competition sort of imbibes the rat race mentality among students and the education system in general?
Yeah, definitely. So when you're competing for any exam for that matter, whether an entrance or for even board examinations, which you need a good score to get into Delhi University, if you're talking about, you have it in your mind that you have to get the score, and if you don't, you start doubting yourself. I think self-doubt comes a lot if you don't get that particular score. We let that one score affect us like fully and consume all of us. So I think that's not great. A lot of people are able to cope up with it, but a lot of people are like affected badly, and it affects the mental health a lot. So I think that's fair.
Right, and because of that, these strict cutoffs, I think a university has to take you not just because of your aptitude, but the person you are as a whole, right? And that's one reason
Yeah.
some people prefer going abroad than just staying here. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's their choice at the end of the day. But again, some people who are restricted to, their regions, ultimately have to face these cutoffs, and this proves
Mm-hmm.
sort of detrimental to their mental health as well. So, during
Yeah.
the sessions that Kavach takes, what are some few? Can you name a few mental health issues that you generally come across, especially in these days?
I think self doubt, as I said, we let that one score, one entrance, one exam, you know, just judge like the entire, like the kind of person we are, and that's not true. As you said, like people, prefer going abroad, although it's a personal choice at the end of the day, because the entire application process and everything is realistic. You're not getting admitted on the basis of your one score. They're looking at a lot of factors.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're playing in India, I think everywhere there's some cutoff to meet. There's some percentile that you have to clear to get through to the best of the colleges. So like the considered which are best. So I think that's one thing which is not great. And the mental health issues that we see, I think stress, anxiety, a lot of them, like every second student would be stressing out over not getting to that college or just doubting themselves even before they've even applied for it. And I remember a lot of students, uh, dealing with the mentorship vertical of coverage where they're directly communicating with the team members, telling them that they won't get through when they're being given the option of these can be the colleges. They make it very clear that I won't get through this college, so I don't want to explore this anymore. Which I don't think isn't right because they're already deciding what would be, which is in the future. So I think yeah, self doubt, stress, anxiety being the major ones.
Right. I mean, if you didn't even give it a try, the fact that you're not giving it a
Exactly.
try negates all the chances at all. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. And could you, I mean, you spoke about self doubt, so could you give a few tips on how students can generally overcome self doubt?
Mm-hmm. I think it's difficult for me to just, communicate that to someone who might be listening to this. But a few basic points which you should keep in mind. Don't let one score affect you. I know it sounds very easy and it can be difficult when you're implementing it, but just go with an open mind that you can do this. And if you don't do this, you tried. At least at the end of the day, you'd be happy that you did your best and it did not happen. And I think the very basic code that work for the best, but then don't expect 2 marks. Like otherwise you'll end up getting disappointed. So I think keep your expectations at the right amount. Don't be too overconfident. I think that sometimes is not the best thing to do. Just be the right amount of confident that you can do it, work for it.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of helps half the way. And otherwise, just know college course now it affects you, but you can always figure things out later. If you don't get the college you want, you can always work things out, because it's not always that the tier one colleges offer you something that other colleges don't. So, like, you can always settle for something because you don't always get what you want. But don't let that define you or affect you for years. I remember when the initial cutoff for DU came out, like when I was going to enter college, then even I was affected in the first cutoff that, oh, I'm not getting the college I want. But then ended up in the next few cutoffs, I got the college I wanted. But then initially, I was very heartbroken as to why am I not getting it, right? But I think we all need to learn to settle and just a bit of required. So, yeah.
Right. And since you have your research in out about colleges in general, and you spoke about what, you know, what can tier when colleges really give that tier two and tier three can't give. I think the answer is just the crowd. But with
Yeah.
talking about education, general education and infrastructure, um, I think a country like India would not just require 20 to 30 IITs, but rather 2,000 IITs where everyone can have equal access to, you know,
Yeah.
resources, at least if not the crowd. So, do you agree with that? Do you think the fact that Tier 1 is sort of seen as put on a pedestal and ultimately it's given the best of the resources in the country, but others are sort of neglected, I'd say.
I have seen that improving over the period of like the last few years, and I do agree that it has been the case that tier two, tier three colleges have been looked down upon, I'd say, but that shouldn't be the case, because I think there are very few factors which differentiate them. Of what I've been able to research and talk to, school teachers directly, principals directly, after having a lot of serious conversations, I've realized everyone wants the best for the students. They want to have the best faculty. They want to, give the best resources. It might not be possible, I think, because of the brand name or the status that the tier one colleges carry, but they've been improving. I've seen a lot of students from tier two, tier three coming out, starting their own ventures, taking the best of the jobs, earning really well. So I think it has a lot to do with yourself as well. The crowd motivates you. I've seen that even in Delhi University. I think the crowd ends up motivating you. It can sometimes be negative as well. It has its pros and cons,
Yeah.
definitely. But in tier two, tier colleges as well, I've seen the motivation in students, and I've seen the universities and institutions also wanting to provide the best. So I think it's improving, although I agree with you on that point.
Right. I mean, like you mentioned, right? Everyone's sort of trying and exploring new things, and I think at the end of the day, it's yourself, but just your crowd being just an additional factor to where you'll be at. And
Yeah,
especially, like you mentioned, the negative effects as well, right? The hustle culture has its own negative effects, keeping you in a detrimental
definitely, definitely.
mental health state.
Sometimes you want to be taking a break, but then you see people around, to do more. But that's the time you
Yeah,
need a break, and people don't take that. So,
true. And the whole concept of anxiety is sort of contributed by time management as well. And of course, you're an entrepreneur and you're doing multiple things. So, if you had to give like a few time management tips, let's say three strong time management tips, and if you could draw them from your board exam experience as well, what would they be?
cut them down into short. Never just take the entire task altogether. Cut it down. Make it easier for you. Take breaks. It's very important. I and try to plan your day in the morning itself or one night before. It helps. You'll know what you're going to do. Otherwise, when a lot of tasks come your way, you're not able to take them all. You'd start doing one thing, then you would switch. You'd panic about the first thing not being completed. So I think divide and give yourself breaks. Like when I wake up, either I would draw my schedule then or I would do that one night before. And I think that really helps me. And even during boards, I used to do that. That, have a schedule. Like make sure that I'm doing only this part. Talking more towards academics, like for high school students or college students who are focusing on studies a lot, cut down your chapters into small bits. You can't consume all of it at once. Even if you think at that moment you understood it, you want to be remembering that even a few days or weeks later. So I think cutting it down and managing time that way helps. Reward yourself over little things. If you worked for 4 days straight, give yourself that at least half a day off the next day. Or like I remember while I used to study, I used to do this very funny yet cute thing that was if I complete this chapter before 2 a.m., I'll have a packet of chips. If I do this, I'll order in some food, right? So you give yourself little rewards. And yeah, I think that's my way to deal with it.
That makes
Or
a lot
has
of
been my
sense.
way to deal with it doing both. Yeah.
I mean, I remember I do some similar stuff as well. I'm like, I'm gonna order pizza if I work for 1 week straight and get some good score or good result at the end of it.
Yeah. And it helps because you get some reward at the end of the day. So you feel happy about it.
Yeah. And the point you spoke about, dissolving the whole big task into smaller tasks and sort of
Mhm.
organizing yourself. Because you can't really have like a full overnight change of yourself, right? Everything has to be a bit incremental, I'd say. So
Yeah.
that's really good. I mean, those are some really good tips that I followed at point as well. Um, Again, thank you so much for answering all the questions patiently. Would you want to talk a bit about Kavach's new global ed consulting, maybe?
Definitely, definitely. So we have launched it recently, as you said, in the month of September itself, and we've been getting great response. I'd say, even for the initial time. Uh, for the 1 year that we were focusing on coverage, we were trying to build a good base in India, talking about Indian universities, helping students with Indian universities and colleges. But we wanted to expand because a lot of students would come to us and ask us if we could help them with their foreign applications. And at that moment, we weren't equipped, and we were working on it for the past 5 months. And I think we reached a stage where we could launch it and provide the best of the services at affordable prices. Again, as I mentioned, we're focusing a lot on affordability. When people are planning to, study abroad, the tuition fee is anyway like a big amount on any
True.
family, no matter how wealthy they are, because it's not just a few bucks, right? Few thousand bucks. So even taking the counseling for it is a very expensive. Generally, the industry prices go in lakhs, which obviously isn't fair because you're already spending too much, and just to figure that way out as well, you're spending too much.
Hmm.
So we are providing them the right guidance and literally whatever that they want, less than 10,000. The prices are less than 80% that the industry prices that are there. And we're providing them with everything like end to end application process, from building their profile to helping them with their mock interviews, SOPs, essays. All of these hold a big, place in your entire application process. When in India, you just restricted to that one cutoff, those particular marks. You have essays to write to explain, to tell about yourself, which is very important. That takes up a good 30% of the space of your application. And then your scores as well. You focus a lot more on consistency and not just on one class score or one entrance. So I think we're helping with everything that we can. We're connecting them to the students. Let's say if I'm a student who wants to go to Stanford, I'm being connected to a mentor from Stanford. So I can get the insights. I can even get to know about their personal journey as to what did they do differently to get through such, an Ivy League. So yeah, I think we're trying to help with an end-to-end application process at the most affordable prices. And we're majorly focusing on UK, US, and Canada right now. We're also accommodating other countries, but majorly these three.
Right. So, and this is only for bachelors, right? Or does it
Yeah,
include
this is only for
masters?
undergraduation. Yes.
Understood. And like you mentioned, affordability plays a huge factor. Like not just the tuition fees there, but even the application fee. If I'm not wrong, it ranges between 80 to one twenty
It is
dollars to
very
the
high.
US, which is a
Yeah.
lot. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that's amazing to know. And thank you so much for joining me. It was a great conversation with you
Thank you
today.
so much for having me. It was great talking to you and, discussing all of these issues that I think we all have been through or are going through at some point. So, yeah, thank you so much for having me.
For sure, I think these issues like sort of sparked the whole mission of Kavach in your journey, and that's amazing that
Definitely.
you're doing something for the
Definitely.
community at the end of the day. Thank you so
Definitely.
much again. And if you've listened to here, you're surely someone who's constantly curious about career choices, universities, and entrepreneurship. Don't forget to like and follow this podcast by the Indian Conclave on all platforms, including Spotify for auditory learners and YouTube for visual learners. Please make sure to follow us on Instagram, on LinkedIn as well. I'll drop Kavach's handles in the description as well. I'll see you in the next episode very soon. Until then, thank you so much.